Rachel, how do you like the house I bought you? My grandmother's voice echoed across the restaurant, and I froze, fork in midair. I didn't own a house. I lived in a shoebox apartment with a leaky ceiling. But then I looked up and saw my mother's face go white. That was the moment I knew everything I thought I understood about my family was about to explode, and not even 40 guests in formal wear could stop it. My grandmother's voice rang out like a church bell at Sunday Mass, clear, loud, and impossible to ignore. Rachel, how do you like the house I bought you for your birthday? I froze, fork midair. My chest tightened so fast I felt like I'd been sucker punched. I looked up across the long dinner table past the white linen and flickering candles and saw my mother's expression twist into something I can only describe as dread. The house she bought me, I lived in a 500 square foot apartment with water stains on the ceiling and a neighbor who played death metal at 2A. I whispered back. Grandma, I don't have a house. But it was too late. Her voice had already traveled the length of the elegant private dining room. Conversations halted. Glasses paused mid-clink. Every head turned. Across from me, my dad's fork clattered to his plate. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and I realized this wasn't just a weird birthday misunderstanding. This was the moment 30 years of quiet betrayal and favoritism cracked wide open. You ever feel a memory flood you like water rushing under a broken dam? That's what happened as I sat there, still frozen. My whole childhood, my college years, my adult life, it all flashed through my head in seconds. I was never the golden child. That was Chloe, my baby sister, the crown jewel of my parents' world. I'd spent years convincing myself I was just overreacting, just imagining things. But in that moment, watching my parents' faces drain of color while Grandma Evelyn blinked in confusion, I knew. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't sensitive. I'd been lied to, over and over again. And now, in front of 40 guests in suits and cocktail dresses, the truth was coming out whether they liked it or not. I looked across the table at Chloe. She wasn't even trying to hide the panic on her face. My throat tightened. So this was how it started. Not with a bang, but with a question wrapped in love and soaked in gasoline. It didn't start that night. That dinner was just the explosion the fuse had been burning for decades. I was 18 when my parents sat me down in our living room, the same place where we used to open Christmas presents and play board games on rainy Saturdays. Rachel, Dad said, his voice tight. It's time you stand on your own feet. You're an adult now. No help with college. No support for textbooks. No guidance. Just a pat on the back and a look that said, we're done raising you. I remember blinking at them, trying to process it. All my friends were getting help, care packages, check-ins, actual dorm supplies. I got a handshake and a, you're smart, you'll figure it out. I did figure it out, but it nearly broke me. Meanwhile, Chloe lived in a different universe. 4 years younger and treated like royalty. She had a college fund by the time she was in diapers. New clothes appeared in her closet like magic. Designer bags, the latest iPhone, before the ads even aired spring break trips to Miami at 17. I once brought it up. Just once. Mom, why does Chloe get everything handed to her? She barely looked up from her coffee. Because she doesn't make everything harder than it has to be. I swallowed the words sitting in my throat like stones. I stopped asking after that. But you know what's wild? I didn't become bitter. Not then. I just worked harder. I moved into a disgusting apartment near campus with 2 girls I barely knew. Cockroaches owned that place. The heating was a myth. I shared a mattress with springs that stabbed me awake at night. I bagged groceries 6 days a week. Ate crackers and ramen for dinner, studied under flickering lights because the landlord never fixed anything. But I did it. I didn't call home for help. I didn't cry for money. And the one person who did help me never raised her voice or asked for anything in return. Grandma Evelyn. She couldn't hear well enough to talk on the phone, but her text messages were like little life rafts in a sea of exhaustion. Sending you a little help, dear. Focus on your future. And suddenly, $1,000 would appear in my account. Sometimes two, just enough to buy textbooks, just enough to eat something with protein in it, just enough to keep going. She never made a big deal of it, just told me she was proud. "I believe in you, Rachel," she wrote once, "and I know you'll make something beautiful out of your life." I kept that text for years. Even now, as I sat at that dinner table years later watching my mother's hands tremble, I thought about that message. Grandma Evelyn believed in me when no one else did, and now she was asking me about a house I never knew existed. College nearly ate me alive. I was working 30 hours a week at a grocery store, juggling 4 classes, and living in a crumbling apartment that shook when someone sneezed too hard. My roommates Brooke and Alyssa were sweet but broke like me. We used to take turns buying toilet paper. There were nights I didn't sleep, just studied until my eyes burned and worked until my knees gave out. Instant noodles became a food group. Heating didn't work half the winter, and our landlord acted like fixing the shower was a personal insult. I should have dropped out, but I didn't, because of her. Grandma Evelyn wasn't just generous, she noticed me. In a family where I'd spent years being invisible, that mattered more than the money. She'd text me out of the blue, "Eat something nice today. Don't forget, rest is productive too. I'm proud of you." Those words kept me afloat when everything else pulled me under. And somehow I made it through, barely. I graduated, got a decent job in finance, started saving like my life depended on it, because in some ways it did. I wanted my own place, my own space. Something permanent, no handouts, no expectations, just mine. Meanwhile, Chloe's life, dreamy. She had the beach photos, the avocado toast brunches, the endless designer handbags. I stopped checking her Instagram. It only reminded me of what I didn't have. Still, I kept grinding. 10-hour days. No vacations, no fancy dinners, every cent went into savings. That apartment I lived in, it was barely livable, but cheap enough to help me build my future. So when I turned 30, I decided to do something small. Nothing fancy, just a little birthday gathering in my apartment. Pizza, store-bought cake, a few coworkers, and my parents. I even invited Grandma Evelyn, though she gently declined, said her health was too fragile for travel, but she'd already sent my gift with my parents. That should have been the first red flag. They arrived 30 minutes late, walked in like they were touring a place on Zillow. "This lighting is awful," Mom said. Dad sniffed. "Cramped, isn't it?" Chloe didn't even say hi, just plopped on the couch and started scrolling TikTok. They handed me gifts like they were tossing trash in a bin. A cheap candle from Mom, a generic chain restaurant gift card from Dad, a self-help book from Chloe. Then Mom pulled out a crystal vase. "From Grandma," she said. "She wanted you to have this." I held it in both hands. It was beautiful, sure, but strange. Not something Grandma Evelyn would send. She was practical, intentional. A vase didn't feel like her. But I smiled anyway. "Thank you," I said. And they left 30 minutes later, exactly 30. I timed it. My friends stayed and we laughed, ate bad pizza, took selfies. It was fun, but the vase sat heavy on the table, gleaming in the dim light. Something about it didn't sit right. I didn't know it yet, but that vase was the first clue to everything they'd stolen. A month passed. The vase gathered dust on my shelf while I threw myself back into work, quarterly reports, budget forecasts, and endless Excel formulas. It was the kind of numb grind that dulled even the sharpest emotions. Then, my phone rang. It was Amanda, my cousin on Dad's side. We weren't close, so I figured she was calling to invite me to some family thing I hadn't heard about. But her voice was tight, urgent. "Rachel, I just left Chloe's housewarming party." I blinked. Her... what? Her voice hesitated. "Wait, you didn't know?" "I didn't know. I hadn't been invited. I didn't even know she had a house." "Rachel, it's huge, super nice. Everyone was there. Grandma, Uncle Pete, Aunt Claire. People were asking where you were." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I wasn't told. I didn't even know she bought a house. Silence. Then Amanda whispered, "Oh my God, they lied to you." "What do you mean?" She exhaled shakily. "Your mom told my mom that you were too jealous to come, that you couldn't handle how successful Chloe is now." I dropped my pen. My stomach flipped. Jealous? They called me jealous of a house I didn't even know existed. I felt humiliated, excluded, used, and worst of all, betrayed. Again. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at photos on Chloe's Instagram, her posing in front of a white craftsman-style home. Forever grateful to my amazing parents, the caption said, surrounded by heart emojis. That's when it hit me like a slap. That was the house. That was what Grandma Evelyn had meant at dinner. I grabbed my phone and called Chloe. She answered on the third ring. "Rachel." "What's up, Chloe? I heard you bought a house." Silence. Then, "Oh, yeah. Why didn't you invite me?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "You hate parties. You'd have been miserable." "That's not true. I would have come if you invited me." She went quiet, then colder. "Well, it doesn't matter now. Where did you get the money?" I asked. "You work part-time at a coffee shop." "And then," she snapped, "Mom and Dad gave it to me. Okay, it's none of your business. Click." She hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand. My heart was pounding. My jaw clenched. They did it again. After cutting me off at 18 after watching me struggle for years, they gave her everything. No hesitation, no shame, and they didn't even tell me. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there turning over every memory like sharp glass in my hands. All those years I spent trying to earn love through effort. And Chloe got a house just for existing. The worst part, it wasn't even theirs to give. 3 days later, I got a text from Grandma Evelyn. "Feeling better these days. Can't wait to celebrate David and Linda's anniversary. Looking forward to seeing you there, dear." My stomach dropped. I hadn't been invited. No call, no message, nothing. But Grandma was expecting me, looking forward to seeing me. So I did what any daughter desperate for clarity would do. I called my mother. "Hi, Mom. I saw the post about your anniversary dinner. I already got you and Dad a gift. I'll see you Saturday." "Okay." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing on the line. And then, "Rachel, we need to talk about Saturday." My hand tightened on the phone. "Okay, talk. We've had to downsize the guest list. It's just, there aren't enough seats for everyone. You don't really need to be there. You can stop by the house next week." I felt my throat go dry. "You're uninviting me. It's not like that," she said too quickly. Things are tight. You understand, I didn't. I really, really didn't." She hung up before I could say anything else. And for a minute, I just sat there, stunned. Old me college Rachel would have accepted it, would have stayed home, swallowed the rejection, buried it under work and fake smiles. But this time was different. Because Grandma Evelyn would be there, and she was expecting me, and I'd be damned if I let them isolate me from the one person who had ever truly stood in my corner. So I made a decision. I sent my parents' gift by courier, a beautiful glass photo frame I spent nearly $200 on with their wedding photo already inside. And then I picked out my best dress, polished my heels, and drove to the venue Saturday night. The restaurant was stunning. White tablecloths, candles, over 40 guests dressed in silk and suit jackets. And there at the front of the room sat Grandma Evelyn, tiny, elegant, glowing in a navy blue dress and pearls. When she spotted me, her whole face lit up. "Rachel," she beamed, waving both hands. My beautiful granddaughter. Her voice echoed across the entire room. Thanks to her hearing aids, she never realized how loud she was. All heads turned. I saw my parents freeze across the room. Mom's face went pale. Dad looked like he'd swallowed his tongue. They rushed over to intercept me. "Rachel." Mom hissed. "What are you doing? I told you not to come." "Please," Dad added, hands trembling. "This isn't the time. You're making a scene." I was about to respond, but I didn't have to. Grandma Evelyn's voice boomed across the room. David, Linda, bring Rachel to sit beside me, now! They stood frozen for a second, caught like children in a lie. Then, with 40 sets of eyes burning into their backs, they obeyed. And just like that, I sat down beside the only family member who ever truly loved me. I smiled at her. She smiled back. And somewhere across the table, Chloe's glare could have burned a hole through the wall. The tension at that table could have shattered glass. Every time someone raised a fork or clinked a wine glass, it felt like a warning shot, like the universe was holding its breath, waiting. But Grandma Evelyn, she was glowing. Every few minutes, she squeezed my hand and said things like, "I'm so proud of you, dear. You've grown into such a graceful woman." Meanwhile, across the table, Chloe was practically twitching with rage. She hadn't said a word to me, but she didn't need to. The eye rolls, the clenched jaw, the stiff posture. It said everything. The guests gave sweet little toasts. Uncle Steve called my parents pillars of strength. Aunt Debbie said they were an inspiration to all married couples. I sat there listening to the fiction unfold, smiling politely, wondering if these people were talking about the same David and Linda I knew. I leaned into Grandma during one of the toasts and whispered, "You look beautiful tonight." She beamed. "This necklace was your grandfather's gift. Anniversary 1964. My throat tightened. She was the last thread of truth left in a web of lies. And then, right after the main course was served, she turned to me with that same booming, well-meaning voice. "So, Rachel, how do you like living in the house I bought you for your birthday?" Silence. Total. Deafening. Silence. I blinked. Even the waiter froze with a tray of wine glasses hovering mid-air. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Someone across the room gasped. Grandma's words had detonated in the room like a bomb. I leaned in closer, heart pounding in my chest. "Grandma, I don't know anything about a house. I never received a house." She frowned. "But I gave your parents everything. The realtor, the paperwork, the keys. It's in your name." I could feel her confusion morph into something sharper, like cold, focused fury. I said softly, "They gave me a crystal vase and said it was from you." She turned toward my parents at the next table. Her voice boomed again, louder than any microphone ever could. "David, Linda, I want you to explain to me right now where the house is I bought for Rachel." Everyone turned. Mom's hands trembled around her wine glass. Dad dropped his fork again. Chloe was staring straight ahead like she could will herself invisible. "Mom," Dad said, his voice cracking. "Maybe we should talk in private, no?" Grandma snapped. "I want the truth. Here, now." I could feel heat rising in my face. My stomach twisted. My palms were damp. This was it, the moment I'd been unknowingly walking toward for years. And then Dad stood up, visibly shaking. He looked at me, then at Grandma, then back at the crowd, and he said it. The sentence that ripped the last thread between us. We gave the house to Chloe instead. The gasp that went through the room felt like a single horrified breath. Someone dropped a glass. Another guest whispered, "Oh my God," so loud it echoed. Grandma Evelyn stood slowly. No one said a word. Even Chloe looked stunned, like she hadn't expected Dad to admit it out loud. Her lips parted, and then she launched into a panicked defense. "That house is mine. Mom and Dad gave it to me. I've been living there for months. This isn't fair." Her voice cracked high and desperate. Grandma didn't blink. "Sit down, Chloe." You could hear the authority in her voice, like a school principal who's seen every excuse in the book. Chloe hesitated, then slowly dropped back into her seat, seething. Then Grandma turned to my parents. "You used my money. You used my trust. You gave away a house I bought for Rachel." Mom started crying, the kind of silent crying that makes your whole face crumple. Dad. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Then Grandma said something I'll never forget. "You've been stealing from me for years, haven't you?" No one answered, but they didn't need to. It was written on their faces. Guilt, panic, shame. Dad opened his mouth, then shut it. Mom covered hers like she was going to be sick. Grandma leaned in close. I saw her adjust her hearing aid and motion them toward her. Her voice dropped barely above a whisper, but I could tell it was serious. They bent down to listen, and for the next 2 minutes she spoke quietly. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw the effect. Dad started nodding furiously. Mom kept wiping at her eyes. When they straightened up, they looked like ghosts. Then Dad turned to the room, clearing his throat. We appreciate you all coming tonight, but the party's over. We'd like everyone to leave." No one clapped, no one moved. Then slowly guests began gathering their purses, coats murmuring things like, "That poor girl, and can you believe they gave the house to the wrong daughter?" I just sat there staring at my plate. Grandma touched my hand. "Come home with me, dear. I don't want to stay with them tonight." I nodded, speechless. We left the restaurant together, the two of us. 2 women, one old, one broken, both holding each other up. That night in my tiny apartment, we sat on the couch with warm tea and a blanket between us. And she told me everything. I gave them $60,000, she said. I worked with the realtor myself. Put the house in your name. I signed every paper. The only thing they had to do was hand you the keys. My chest hurt, physically hurt. I looked at her. They gave me a vase. We both laughed for a second. And then, silence. A vase instead of a house. A lie instead of love. She sighed. I trusted them. I shouldn't have. That night I cried quietly when she fell asleep beside me on the couch, because even though it hurt like hell, I wasn't alone anymore. The next morning I opened my front door and there they were, my parents, standing awkwardly on the steps holding a set of keys. Dad's hand shook as he extended them toward me. "These are for you." He couldn't look me in the eyes. Mom wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy. Neither of them said I'm sorry. They just stood there like 2 strangers caught stealing from a neighbor. I didn't say anything. I just took the keys and closed the door. A week later, I drove out to see the house. My house. It sat quietly at the end of a tree-lined street. White porch, navy shutters, a tidy little garden that looked like it had been manicured for Instagram. It was beautiful. Perfect, really. Except, it wasn't me. Inside the walls were lavender Chloe's favorite color. The kitchen had pink rose gold accents. The framed prints were all trendy quotes like "live, laugh, love." It smelled like vanilla and entitlement. They'd designed it for her. But it was mine now, and I was going to make it feel like home. First, I painted over every lavender wall with soft sage green and ocean blue. Then I replaced the mirrors, the rugs, the frilly curtains. I turned Chloe's walk-in closet into a reading nook with beanbags and a hanging lamp. I planted vegetables in the backyard, and every time I changed something, it felt like peeling off a lie. Layer by layer, until all that was left was space to breathe. It's been 6 months since that night. I haven't spoken to my parents, or Chloe, and I don't plan to. Not because I'm bitter, but because I finally understand something that took me 30 years to learn. Some people love the idea of family, but only when it's convenient for them. I don't need convenient love. I need honest love. And I found that with Grandma Evelyn. Every other weekend, I drive out to her house. We bake together, watch black and white movies, sit in her sunroom while she knits and I read. Last week, she held my hand and said, "You're the granddaughter I always dreamed of. Smart, kind, strong. They tried to turn you invisible, but you kept showing up." I cried in her arms like I was 8 again. Because finally, someone saw me. I didn't get justice in court or closure with a dramatic apology. I got something better. A place that's mine. A truth I no longer have to doubt. And the kind of love that doesn't get erased by favoritism. Sometimes the family we lose makes space for the family we deserve. It took 30 years, one stolen house, and a dinner that shattered every illusion I had. But I finally see things clearly. My parents didn't fail to love me, they chose not to. They had every opportunity to support me, to be proud of me, to show up. And they chose Chloe, again and again and again. But here's what they didn't count on: that I'd survive without them, that I'd build something out of nothing, that the girl they tried to erase would take up space anyway. I don't miss the tension. I don't miss the shallow praise, or polite phone calls, or fake family holidays. What I have now, it's quiet, it's simple, it's real. I have a home that no one can take from me. I have peace that doesn't depend on being chosen. And I have Grandma Evelyn, my anchor in the storm. Some nights I still replay it all. That vase, that party, that moment in front of 40 witnesses when the truth finally came out. And I wonder, what would you do if your parents gave away your future, then lied to your face about it? Am I wrong for cutting them off for good? Let me know in the comments. Share this if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. And if you're healing from betrayal too, you're not alone. Sometimes the people we thought we needed were just blocking the door to the life we deserve.